Hello, hi. This is Umayma Khan, and welcome to my podcast. First podcast, in fact, because I guess this is very something very new that is coming from my side, and I never thought about it that something like this really exists. I hope the music is not so loud. I know podcasts are not supposed to be this way, with music and all, but I believe that adding a little music, a little piano in the background adds a great flavor to it. So yeah, it's gonna be this way all the way long. Podcasts have been, the part of my life since a very long time, as I'm a very talkative person when it comes to talking to myself. So yeah, podcast is something that I do on a daily basis. So yeah, what actually influenced me to write? I believe that I started writing at the age of 17, like 6 years from now, I guess. And um, it was some kind of misery, I guess, I was facing at the time, and I was kind of isolated. I had no friends and all. So yeah, the depression kind of just made me write, and I wrote a very pathetic piece of poetry. It was quite a bullshit though, but yeah, that was a beginning though, beginning to the writing culture in my life. Yeah. So yeah, I started that way, and then, but I have never taken writing as a career because I believe that I cannot take the pressure. Pressure is something like it's not my thing. So yeah, earning with writing is the stupidest thing that I can do to myself, because writing is something that I love to do, and it's just something that makes me, it suits me, and that calms me in my, you know in my difficult times. Yeah, it's my soother. So yeah, I cannot just ruin it by writing for people, for money's sake. That's not my thing. Okay, so I believe that there are different types of writers. One type is the one who are the ones to write about the fantasy, they write fantasy, they're more like illusionist, or you can say that they have delusional images of life. Yeah. So yeah, those kind of people I have been too, and I am still, and I am just gonna say that they are great people and they write great writings. I enjoy reading them. The other type of people are like more like reality based. They talk about reality, they talk about real life experiences, talk about real problems, about the society, about society and the problems that are occurring in the society, current situation and all that. So yeah, they talk about those things, and it's quite awakening and more inspirational. So both types of writers have their own merits and demerits. So I believe so. So yeah, what kind I have been is that I have been both. I have been a fantasy writer. I have been I am still though um realistic, kind of, with that behavior, you know, talking about life and experiences and how to cater certain problems, you know, being, preparing myself, to face those things, the miseries, like a mature person, like every person should. So yeah, that's the kind of writer I have become throughout the journey. I was never this way. When I started writing, I was like a person who was finding an escape route, always looking for a chance to get away from the reality and, you know, um, finding myself again and again, getting back to that phase again and again where I feel free, where I felt free, where I am just under the night sky and, you know, imagining great things about life, being with a person that I loved, and being with, you know, having, good time, just having a perfect life. So yeah, that's kind of a writer I was before. And I guess I am still that writer, but when it comes to, you know, making myself able to face certain things, I just started talking real. So yeah. So what kind of poetry mostly I follow is the one that is more like reality based, soul awakening kind of poetry. Um, Either it's spiritual or it's very much related to real life. But I really believe that um that writing in a certain way, like in different types of way, is a talent in itself. If you're able to write, with a genre of romance, and then you're able to write in the genre of life, then you're able to write in a manner where you can talk, where you can rhyme, actually rhyme and talk in a metaphorical way. So yeah, it's a very great writing. And I guess I am a very much, rigid in that manner, in that way. I cannot write in all. I cannot really categorize myself, in all those types. So um, yeah, it has been that way. So that has been quite a rant, though, and I wasted your time in that, talking about writers. But a real thing is that I'm just gonna read some poetry and let you guys enjoy it too, because I believe that whatever I write is more like not very much, it's more like in a sign language. So I talk in a very in a way that it's not understandable to a normal person. People who see things from the surface are like, they're not able to understand quite much. So yeah, it is gonna be this way. So this piece of poetry says intimacy, and it says, shivering fingers dusting the soul with the inhale of each bit of tobacco, eyes edging only long deep breaths, the lungs just filled enough to give up, not a single globular line to kiss the forehead. How pity, my word against me. Have you seen her? I close my eyes and all I see is her, smooth and rough, marking her own boundaries to escape from me. Plays often, sometimes disappears between the black clouds, sometimes stop to hold me and storm my brain to seize my breaths. But when I'm about to catch her, she slips away from my fingers like a silk cloth. She leaves the fragrance of her soul, fragrance like cigarette ash, fragrance like silt. It kills me to couldn't help but adore. It kills me to resist the last touch of it. Should I forgive her for this foreplay, or wait for the moment to come again, where I can hold her longer, shed some tears, to be honest with her, tell her about the nightmares, about the fear of losing her, in a whisper, tell her about my inhumanity after her departure, show her my blooded wounds. For the moment where I can see her, stare into her eyes, holding a war, where I can speak to her madness, embellish her with lilies, and not stop until she leaves me with a smile. Should I tell her my intentions, how she executes a flood in me of misery and chaos, how she leaves me under the sky of filth and emptiness, how she ruptures my soul with her brutality? Should I tell her I curse myself on behalf of her, with every drop of tear I cause her? Would she listen to me, or let me be on my own once again? So that was it. That piece of poetry really talks about the woman that awakens in me, mostly at the night time. That woman is kind of nice, It's just she's amazing, and she is my conscience basically. So yeah, that woman is like, but she never stays for long. She never stays for long. No, she usually evolves in the nighttime and then disappears immediately after, you know, jerking me and, just awakening my conscience. That's what she does. So it was more like about that woman and her brutality, because she's brutal because she leaves. She should stay, but she never tends to stay. She always leaves. So yeah, it was more like about her and her foreplay, how she plays hide and seek with me. So yeah, this was the one piece of writing that was more like that was more like perceptive, how you perceive it. you know you could perceive it in another way too, but it's just how you perceive it depends on the reader. So yeah, that was about the first piece of poetry that I thought that I should share, and felt like that um it should be featured. Okay, so second piece of poetry that I thought that I should share is a visit. By the way, as I told you before, that all my poetry is basically sign language. You have to perceive things on your own. You have to understand it. I guess that's mostly because I have been reading such kind of poetry, and I have read such writers, and that's the first reason though. And the second reason is that I I just I just feel like I want to say things, in a way that nobody understands it and nobody gets the real reason behind it, So it's just that way. Okay, so a visit. It says, the room was just musical, red, and insensitive. Should I dance or should I lean back to visit you and all the related grief? It is just so relaxing. As I read every bit of you during that visit, a lot to say, a lot to write. Yet I have my eyes closed, just enjoying your presence. Your delusional image, it is just not an easy escape. Not trapped either. Just captured by the sensuality of this beautiful image. I read in this book, if you find it, seek it. Don't run from it. It's not so far, even if it's just a shadow. Why shouldn't I seek it? Nurture this moment, even if it's hollow inside. Treasure the forsaken, even if it plays dead to dawn. The skies in my stories are obsessed with a dead theme song. Why should I not embrace this somber holocaust? I should, and I do. In that bed, we hold hands for moments, not for promises, and dance to this classical piano. One should listen while reading. While we dance, we laugh at our taste. It sucks. We catch times in an unordinary way, like always, like now. So I'm happy for catching this little muse of you, or us. Wow, I didn't believe that I wrote this. So yeah, it was beautiful. I enjoyed it actually reading it after such a long time. Um, it was just poetry that was related to some lover I had or have, whatever. No, too far. Anyways, so yeah, those were the moments I felt, with my eyes closed, and I just felt those things, and everything just came on its own in my head, and I was like, in that moment, it's still, whenever I read it, it still, takes me to that moment, to that thought, and imagining certain things in a certain way. So that was a fantasy writing, by the way, and the previous one was realistic writing. Yeah. So yeah, as I told you before, that I'm both type of writers. Yeah, realistic and fantasy both, because I guess writing is kind of mixture of both of these things. So some people are like more like restrict themselves to certain kind of genre, but some people, they tend to be more diverse. Except for the diverseness that I believe that I should have is writing, romantic kind of poetry. That field, I have no PhD in that, and I wish that I could have had that, but I do not have that, because I guess I believe that I'm not very much, expressive in that manner, in that field, in that area. So and that area requires more like openness, and more like, by openness I mean that more like, open to expressing yourself. So I suck at that, by the way. Yeah, that was another piece of poetry though, but that's not it with the ranting though. I just never wanted to bore you or something. But there's another piece of writing that I really wanted to share. You know, um, it says the titled title of this poetry is "Didn't I Say That I Loved You?" Okay, that's gonna be intense. All right, so it says, I'm stuck on this song of our playlist again. My playlist. Correction. My mind is wrestled by every word. As verse by verse, my heart is stormed in an uncasual way. Maybe it's a thought of you, or the thought of you and me. The ultimate moments that we built with each other. The romance that vigorously glistened in simple touch of fingers and sure of eye gaze. The random discourse of the wind being too rusty, or the abandoned house, or the stars in the sky being numerous than a normal count. Just simple talking, simple engagements. In the moments, filled to tell each other about how perfect this moment is. We both felt it, but the scare haunted us in between. What if? What then? Somehow we lost it. The moments, the sentiment, the courage, the commitment. We were too hard on ourselves. In the slip of moments, stayed virgin enough to tell each other until the wait was over. And none of my text messages, none of my poetry pieces could tell you that I love you. I've always loved you. Okay, I'm speechless. You know, every piece of poetry is just um reminds me of certain moments, about what was the state of mind, what was the state of mind when I was writing this. So yeah, it just drives me to that way. I go back to that phase again, and it's just so great that you're able to um experience certain things again and again, relive those moments. So if you're a writer, and if you write, I think that there is nothing best, and that's the best thing that could ever happen to you, because you are able to live moments, you're able to live, you know the love that you maybe never have had from the people you thought you could have had, or maybe at least your lover, people you loved, the person you loved. So yeah, you live those moments, before your time, through your writings, writing about them. So you imagine them, you fantasize about certain things, and you wish to go back to that time again and again. So writing helps. Writing is a great healer, soother, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, those were of those were three writings that I read to you, and all three were like they were like they involved love and um reality and fantasy. You know, all of these three involved all of that. And talking about the first one, in the first one, there was a woman that woman that I adore. Second one was the person, the love of my life. Yeah. So it was like second of that was that, and third one was like more like, you know, telling the person that I it's a declaration of um prof- profession of like of love, and it's beautiful, and I enjoyed reading all of these three. So um when I talk about certain things, when I talk about writing, I mostly talk about the factor that um you should always be able to face things. You should always be able to analyze yourself, in all of your phases of your life, in all of those phases of your life. And you need to determine your behavior, and how in a certain manner you should have performed, in that phase, in that part of your life. And how well are you performing now? I have grown a lot through time, 3 years of my life, through writing everything, and I'm very much proud of myself because I have become a very much emotionally stable person. And it all just happened, not in a snap. It just happened with time. Everything takes time. It requires experiences. It requires some effort. So yeah, examining yourself, how far you have come, is very important. Now that I was, if I just look back in the past years of my life, I had I had certain walls that I never thought that I would be able to break them. They were like that was very hard, to break these walls. Every person has certain way. Every person has his or her own nature, and um they act in a certain way. So I had those walls, and I um with time I was able to break them, and uh it was great. when I see compare myself, the today version of myself with the past version of me, it's just so great that I'm no more the same person, that the spirit I had always is has to some extent is gone. To some extent it's diminishing, and I really am grateful for that, so breaking your walls is very important. So being more like, once you're able to do that, you let other people enter your life, you let people to you basically you get to experience more things, see about see different people, different natures, experience different kind of flavors, as more to be more specific. So life is about experiences, life is about being present, for yourself. When when you're present for yourself, you're able to be present for others, you're able to understand others, you develop the flexibility to understand others and to put yourself in their shoe and understand that what they might be going through, and if you were the person, how would you react to certain situations. So it's just that it's a very, very grown up thought, and I came across to this thought. It took some time for me to being able to understand this. All right, that was quite ranting, and that was a good discussion though. But I just want to end this podcast by reading another piece of poetry, because I believed that it's gonna be a 30 minutes of podcast, and um, three pieces weren't enough. And so this writing specifically says, the title is that the last time we were talking. So that's how it goes. You know how I write? Mostly when it's about you. I play our track that I played the last time we were talking. It's how I reminisce silhouettes of you, the bits that don't hurt me or make me suffer. I put them in a bottle, in fact, and close the lid. I'm gathering every thought that relates to you. At least, I don't take it for granted in a blink of an eye. I don't know what will I do when this bottle is full and no more of you can be held. I don't know what will I do when this time would come, when the time would come to throw it away. I'm just running out of time with a slip of tomorrow until it becomes another worse day. And guess what? I have all the doors closed. I'm not ready to let this misery crawl my bed and pull my sheets at night. I'm just not ready to paint my walls red in the daylight. It terrifies me. It makes me want to hold my breaths and witness my own death on the sunrise. It makes me want to live unhappy and lost for the rest of my life. Oops, there were lots of clutches in this reading. Sorry for that, because I have been talking for like 30 minutes. It's just crazy, I'm not a very much talkative person, and that's the longest I have been talking. Wow. But about this piece of writing, it was a great writing and a great poetry that I wrote at mostly talk about the lost lover, you know, as always. You know. So um my writings, usually my poetry, doesn't follow any kind of rhymes or metaphors, certain rules of poetry. So I suck at that, and personally I believe that that is not very much attractive. No, that's my personal view. You all can have your own opinion about that, but according to me, they're like, I don't feel the feel, in that kind of poetry. But I enjoy the poetry that goes with the flow, with the thoughts that coming in your head, and you're just writing them down, and they're just subtle, and they're nice, they're soothing. They're more like, they're not like when you tend to rhyme things, you have a certain pressure that you have to rhyme, you have to find a certain, you know rhythm, you have to find a certain way, like two words to flow, and you have to find another rhythmic way, rhyme, another rhyme for that, like flow or glow. So that's kind of stupid. So I feel like it. I'm not sure about y'all, but I believe that it's just kind of not my thing. And again, there are different types of writers and different kind of poetry, but the kind of poetry that touches me a lot is fantasy. Fantasy. I love fantasy writers. That's more like illusion. I like certain delusional images sometimes. I like picturing them sometimes. But I love the poetry, the writings that are more like reality based, that are like um less magical, brutal truths about society, our lives. So yeah. So that was it. Sorry again for burying me for this long. And I hope you enjoyed my podcast, my very first intro kind of podcast. So yeah, um, let me know if you want your poetry to get featured in my upcoming podcast that I'm gonna be doing. I hope that if I stayed consistent. So yeah, if you want to get featured, please let me know in the comment section below. And that was it. Thank you for watching me, for listening me. In fact, this is Umayma Khan signing off. Take care. Goodbye.